Okay, everybody, we are back with another episode of the Gripe Session podcast. And as always, today we've got another special guest. And yes, a lot of my podcasts have some of the former coaches from camp. Today is no exception. My guest today played a number of years for a number of different teams: Houston, Detroit, the Dodgers, and of course the New York Mets. I might have left out a team here or there, but we'll let him bring it up. Dave Mlicki, welcome to the Gripe Session podcast.
Hey, thanks, bud. Thanks for having me.
So definitely appreciate you coming on today.
For sure.
Obviously, we met through Mets Fantasy Camp, and when
Yep.
I asked you, you obviously agreed to come and do the podcast. So we definitely
Sure.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great.
Let the listeners and people that watch this on YouTube kind of give them an idea of how you got started in the game of baseball, high school, maybe moving into the minors, and then
Yeah.
obviously your ascension to the majors.
Yeah, well, it's funny, growing up, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and me and my brother and all we ever wanted to do is play baseball. It's all we ever did. So it's all I loved. I mean, I love sports, but I was always such a small kid that I couldn't play football, couldn't play basketball, so we played, stuff messing around. So baseball was always a thing. And, growing up I was born in the 60s, but growing up in the 70s, the Big Red Machine, right down the street was Cincinnati. So we just, fell in love with baseball. And just from day one, I always dreamed if I could do something, that's what I'd love to do for a living, And so, yeah, just grew up in Columbus again until high school. But like in junior high, I didn't really even play that much. I was too small. And we moved to Colorado, and I grew a ton one summer. And so things kind of took off from there. And I started as a shortstop, second baseman kind of thing, and always had good hands, could always hit. And it was great. And then as I got bigger, started throwing a little bit harder. And my high school coach went to school, University of Oklahoma. And once I started getting some more and more attention, he reached out to them and wanted me to go there. And at that time, Oklahoma State was really good. And so I came down to a few schools. Some schools wanted me to pitch, and other schools wanted me to play shortstop and hit. And I think I made the right choice. But trying to hit off these guys is about impossible. So it was great. So I ended up going to school at Oklahoma State. I got drafted. And then I grew. I graduated high school. I was 6 foot, like 160 pounds. And then I grew 4 inches in college, put on a bunch of weight, and, you start throwing harder and harder. And then you start getting recognized a little bit. And I got drafted by Seattle my junior year and ended up not going. And it was the right choice because in 1990, I really wanted to go to the World Series, and we did. And we lost in the championship game, which kind of sucked. But got drafted by Cleveland that summer and went to a short season A-ball team. And then the next year, I kept getting the injury bug, which kind of sucked, obviously, in college and all that. And with Cleveland, at my first camp, same thing. I got some shin splints, couldn't do stuff. And so they sent me back to like extended spring. And I was like, holy crap, I can't even make a team. And so I, rehabbed down there and, did well. And then they sent me to a short A team. And then that's 90, God, was at 91. Then the next year I skipped the high A team and I started in double A. Had a great year in double A and got called up in September from double A. So just kind of skipped. It was really rapid. I went from nothing to the big leagues in a year and a half, which was pretty cool. And it was great. And then, threw well in Cleveland. Man, that was something though. You get called up and, being from Ohio, you get called up in Cleveland was awesome. And, my debut was in Chicago, the White Sox. And I was scared shitless. So I always tell the story, the first pitch in the big leagues. I get there and I'm, going against, Frank Thomas, Robin Ventura. I went to school with him and they're on the other side. And I'm like, holy crap, what am I doing? And so I couldn't feel the ball in the first pitch. Because I started throwing harder and harder. And I'm like, I'm going to throw this thing so hard. And it was Joey Cora, who was a tiny little lefty. I don't know if you remember him or not, but
Yeah.
Left-handed batter. And I'm like, I'm throwing this thing hard. And I threw it. I smoked him right in the middle of the back. My first pitch in the big league. And I was like, and everyone's laughing. And I was like, oh, for the love of God. But probably was the best thing I ever did because Tim Raines came up next and you could see the look on his face. He was so scared. So I ended up having a good, I struck out Frank Thomas 3 times that game. And so it was a great debut. But then I pitched a couple. And then the last game of the season, it was the most I ever pitched. I tore my labrum and that kind of set me back. And so all that stuff, sets you back. You have to rehab and blah, blah, blah and all that. But I got traded to New York and that was a blessing. I loved it there. It was great. I loved it. First time in New York was there. And, we had a great team, great teammates, and just, the New York fans and people it was awesome. Loved it. And then from there, I got traded. Where'd I go? From there, I went to LA. So I got traded for Nomo, which is, it's good, when people want you, but I really didn't want to leave New York. Then from, LA, had, did some great starts, had some good stuff there. But then we just signed, gosh, who was it? We had 5-6 pitchers, starters, and it was just, I knew someone was going to go. And so I ended up getting traded to Detroit, and then Detroit to Houston, and made the playoffs there, had some good stuff there. And, I was really fortunate. I wish I would have obviously stayed longer, and wish I would have done better. I don't think I ever really truly reached my true potential, but you get hurt a little bit here and there, and things happen, and these guys are good. So, but I love it. I wouldn't change a thing. I think the only thing I would change is if I wish I was in New York a little bit longer. I really did love my time there, but it happens. And, so no complaints, and retired and came back home and help raise the boys and watch them grow up, and all their little league and high school and all that, and hockey. And it was great. So I wouldn't change a thing.
Talk about, that's great. Talk about the whole notion that everybody always talks about, whether it be in any sport, is playing in New York. And you need sometimes you need a certain type of player to be able to deal with New York. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's just New York fans are so different because they're so smart, right? They know the game, which is good and bad, as a player. They're so passionate, which why wouldn't you be? There's so much sports and things in New York, and that's why that's why they call it what they do. And it is you have to have thick skin, and I think at times it did get to me a little bit. I think I pitched great for like 3.5 years, and then I have a bad couple months, and you hear it from everybody, and then you start to internalize, and you want to get better and better, and you push yourself, and you have to realize you don't have to do anything more than you're capable of doing. I always tried to be better and try more, and all I really needed to do was just be myself. And you look back on that later. That's always easy to say, but at the time when you get in a bad streak, you just try and do anything you can to get out of it. So I think the hardest thing is just they're so educated, and so they're just great fans. And so if you're doing great, they love you, and if you go bad for a little bit, they'll give you a little bit of grace, but they'll let you know pretty quick that you need to change up. So I think you just have to keep the outside noise out. I think in today's world, it would have to be harder with social media, and everything you do is photographed or on, I think it'd be hard right now to play. I really do. And the game's changed, obviously it has, but I think everyone should get a chance to play. And if you can play in New York, man, it's awesome. My boys, I told you earlier, they're not in sports anymore. They're in banking, but they're getting their start in New York too. And I'm like, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. You got to go there, get your feet wet, and live the life. And it's awesome. It makes you grow up fast.
That's great. Yeah. See, that's the one thing that everybody always talks about when they get frustrated with the game. I'm like, you do realize that it's a game of failure, and
right?
It kind of teaches you, how do I deal with failure? Because if you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer. I know, it's crazy. So
and I think the analytic aspect, in my opinion, is starting they're dealing with it, and I think it's always going to be a part of the game. But I think that pendulum should kind of start to need to go back and switch about the intangible stuff that you can't see in a stat line.
I totally agree. It's the little stuff, getting the runner over, putting the bunt down and sacrificing yourself for the win, and. Yeah, 100%. And it's, the analytics are great, and I understand what they're trying to do, but look at Greg Maddux. If you threw analytics at him, he doesn't throw hard enough. He didn't do this, did that. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, but he could, hit a fly from across the room with his location. And that's what you had to do. And you learn how to pitch, you learn how to, work the ball in and out and change speeds. And now, everyone's just bigger, stronger. And I think, it's obviously evolution and training and everything else they do, but you also have to learn how to pitch. And I don't, do they do that? For sure they do that. Each generation gets better and better, but it's the game definitely changes.
It's funny that you use Greg Maddux, because when I talk to people nowadays and I hear all of this stuff about who throws hard enough, but does it all move, or is it flat? And I'm like, I said, Greg Maddux never was a 100-mile-an-hour thrower.
No.
He was a guy that would paint the corners, do all of this other kind of stuff. I go, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine. I'm like, you talk about 2 of the best pitchers in the game ever, and they, based on today's stats, probably never play.
Never play. I know. It makes enough sense. And that's where I think when you talk about the intangibles, there's knowing the game and learning how to pitch. And, if a guy's creeping in on the plate, you have to get him off the plate and just how to move it in and out. I think if you ask any hitter too, changing speeds is one of the biggest things. Like, if you throw a ball straight at 104 miles an hour and it's coming, they're going to hit it, which is insane to me, first of all. But, you throw in something with a wrinkle or moves or change speeds, then you get them on their front foot, then they're up. And that's the whole goal of pitching, is just to get them, off balance and looking for a different spot. If they're looking fastball in a zone and you throw it in that zone, they're going to hit it. And it's how it is. Those guys are just so good. It's amazing how good they really are.
Right. So that's also a great analogy. One of the things that obviously of how we met and for a lot of Mets fans, obviously that'll end up watching this with, is through Mets fantasy camp. And
Yeah.
Doug Dickey has done such a great job. Doug,
Amazing.
More shout outs on this podcast.
I
Before.
bet.
And Doug has been on this podcast as well. So talk about when Doug approached you to come to fantasy camp,
Yeah.
right? Talk about that conversation. And then once you got there and the experience that you had as somebody that's done it, with quite honestly, with us, which are quite honestly a bunch of hacks that some of us may have played a little bit at different levels, still play, but you guys have done it at that level. And then to come watch us play, talk about that and the camaraderie and the experience.
Yeah. Well, what's awesome about it is, first off, Doug, I'm sure he gets tons of praise and he does an amazing job. I wanted to do fantasy camp and I got reached out by who was it? Was it the Tigers, I think, or someone, and it just wasn't, or the Indians. I'm sorry, that's who it was. It just wasn't kind of the same thing. And so I was in New York and I talked to Jay Horowitz. I've heard people doesn't know, he was the PR guy and he's still really involved with the Mets, and he's an amazing person. And I told him I wanted to do this fantasy camp, and I was actually up in New York. They had me come up do an appearance for the Subway Series, so we're doing a bar thing, and it was me and Alfonso. So we're in there, and he brought over a camper, and the camper's like, "You need to do this fantasy camp." I'm like, "Yeah, I want to." And Turk brought it up. I'm like, I want to. And so one of the campers goes, "I'm gonna call Doug right now." And so he calls Doug, and I wish I could remember who it was. And he said he'll reach out to me, and he did. And I was like, okay, I want to kind of get involved in this. And I didn't know exactly what it was. I just wanted to get back and be part of the Mets, and that was really the only way I could do it. And getting down to fantasy camp, I had no idea what it was going to be. I didn't know what the baseball was going to be like, or good, bad, or other. And honestly, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you guys are so much fun to be around, and you have such a passion for the game. It makes me enjoy the game back to how I used to love it. You know what I mean? It's just fun being around the guys. And I think if you talk to a lot of players, I think they would all say one thing they definitely miss is the competition, because you can't replace the competition, but you can't also replace that camaraderie and being in a locker room and hanging out and, ripping on the guys. And it's just, there's nothing better than a locker room. It's just the best.
I do.
It's just the best. And, if you have a great game, everyone's happy for you. And if you have a bad game, they know you're going to, you'll get some ribbing, but it's all in good fun. But Doug just makes it a really fun, enjoyable experience. And, I'm grateful that I get to be a part of it, get to meet you guys, get to meet a bunch of different fans. And I mean, I don't know how many guys I keep in touch with. Just every now and then they'll shoot me a little text, and it's cool, and I don't mind, and it's fun, and I just think it's fun that people are that love a game that much. I think it's just, I've never really seen it from, I guess, a fan's eye, and I think that's how you can kind of see it at fantasy camp. And I like that there's an age range. I had no idea. They went from 35 to, I mean, some of those guys are 70 years old.
I think it's 30 to be
30?
able to go, and then there's no age after
Yeah.
that. There's some.
Yeah, to pitch you have to be 35. I think
You got to be 35 to pitch. Yes.
Yeah, because that's the difference too. And you get some of these young guys that can fly around the bases, and you got the guys in the outfield that can barely move, like me. So
listen, I'm getting there. There.
Holy cow, is it crazy? But it's fun, and it's just a great week, and I look forward to it now. And there's another one coming up, and I'm doing both weeks again, and it's a fun, great time. It's a great way to get back involved in the game for me, and just to be around like-minded people that love the game and love the Mets, and it's a really good time.
Yeah. It's literally, I call it in one of the other campuses, it kind of crowned it like family camp because everybody becomes like family. Good family and bad family, the same
Yeah,
breath
we're all
at times,
family.
but
That's right.
you know,
Yeah.
it becomes like a family. And I was like, listen, I rip family just as much as I rip regular
Heck
people, but
yeah.
it's for me, again, it's the relationships like you talked about, right? The
Yeah.
camaraderie that goes on in the locker room.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you a better, like I had somebody that I know who was telling me that they were a huge Howard Johnson person growing
Yeah.
up, even though they're a Yankee fan.
Yeah.
So I'm like, really? I was like, how did I never know this?
Yeah.
So coincidentally, their birthday was like the next week.
Amen.
So I text Hojo,
Yeah.
which is, by the way, very wild now that guys that I grew up watching, Hojo, Doc,
Yeah. Yeah.
Tank,
Yeah.
I shoot them text messages here and they
Nuts.
respond. And people
Right.
go, no, well, you don't. I go, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's wild. Hojo, I said, can you do me a favor and do a video for me for this person?
Yeah.
I had a video in my text message box in about
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Yeah. Sure. Why
And I'm
not?
like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Had the person crying.
I bet. I
And
bet.
it was just so, and that's what camp does. It's like
No, it
a
does.
bunch of us get together during the,
Yeah.
during the off season, the off season when we're not going down,
Yeah.
doing any of that stuff. We go out to dinner, we go hang
Yeah.
out, we do.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk to a bunch of some of these people more than I talk to members of my family. And stuff.
Yeah, I get it. No, I get it. It's fun for me too. Is like going down there and being around old teammates again because you lose touch with some of the guys. It's we had cell phones. I mean, I'm really dating myself now, but things change, and be around Pulse again, and Tank and Alfonso. Like those are all the guys I played with and I grew up with. And get to see them again and hang out. And and even Turk, like you just don't miss a beat. He goes right back to the same stuff. We have the same jokes, the same thing. It was awesome. And then to involve you guys in there and the kangaroo court, I think is just hilarious. And that stuff, it's just good stuff. But to your point is, I think we all go down there knowing, I think you guys make it easy for that to get to know you guys too, which makes it fun too. And then you don't mind, hanging out and, we do all this fun stuff together, and it's really a good time. It's a great way to see old teammates again. And I mean, look, I never got to see Doc. I watched him pitch forever, and he's just an old dude. He's hang out. It's fun, and that guy's amazing, and so it's fun to see everyone and hang out and do things.
At one point I was sitting down at breakfast, Doc comes over, sits down next to me, then Tank comes over, sits down next to me, and I go like this, I go, and I'm just smiling. I go, what the hell are you laughing about? Like, what do we do? I go, nothing. I continue to laugh about how cool this is.
Yeah.
I just took a selfie and I'm like, yeah, this is how my day started. How's yours?
Yeah.
And I
just
posted
started.
it, and the amount of stuff that I got from people like, holy cow. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is camp, yo.
It's camp. Yeah. No, it's
So,
cool. But I think Doug does a great job with that too, because I didn't realize that we would be in the locker room as well, which makes it a completely different experience. And I've heard other camps that they separate, but it's that's what makes it fun and that's what I think New York brings out too, is you get to know people, and then once you're in, you're in, and they're just good people. So it's all good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So going back into your career with the Mets, obviously, one of the games that you are obviously probably known most for when you're pitching for the Mets, and you probably had a bunch of great games with the Mets, was that game, that complete game against the Yankees.
Sure.
And I think it was the first. I remember, was that the first time they started doing interleague play again?
Yeah, it was the first time. Yeah, it was the first year of interleague play, and it was the first time the Mets played the Yankees. So it was great.
So talk about how that was for you, as far as going to Yankee Stadium and complete game against the Yankees. The rival, crosstown rival.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So when the season started, I saw that game come up. And I looked at what our season is. I was like, man, I really want to pitch one of those games. And I didn't, you never know how it's going to work out. And, it's funny, as I started so slow, I had some great games and things just didn't go my way. So my numbers weren't that great, even though I thought I was pitching pretty well. And, unfortunately, I've always been known for having a great arm, all this, and I'd always try and do too much. And instead, I just kind of relaxed. And so Bobby came up and said, we're set the rotation. You got the first game. And I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. Right. At least not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to get to pitch in that game. And I'd never been to Yankee Stadium. So the bus gets there, fans are going crazy. And I wanted to see what Yankee Stadium was. So I actually got there, a little early and walked around, went to, see all the plaques, see everything, just take it all in. So when I got out there, I wasn't looking around kind of awestruck, and I don't know, for some reason, it was just I had an eerie confidence that game. I don't know. I just felt really good. Everyone, great warm up, everything. And we kind of changed things a little bit in that I was going to go right after everybody really quick and then work my breaking stuff in later. And we kind of just changed how I did things. If I got behind, I was going to use breaking stuff instead of throwing harder. And, Dak, that was when I get in trouble, I try and throw harder and harder. And he's like, let's back it up and like throw change ups and do that kind of stuff. And so I think it really helped as we scored, I think 3 runs in the first inning, which gave me a cushion. So if I totally just shit the bed, at least, the number one goal is to win, right? You want to win. And then, Jeter hits a ball up the middle, first pitch. I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. And I think what really helped is the next guy, what did he do? He grounded out. I can kind of remember the game. And then I struck out Cecil. But the big one is I got in a little bit of trouble with O'Neill, and I threw a great changeups, which I wasn't really known for changeups that much. And I struck him out. And I was like, all right, that kind of really helped my confidence. And I was like, I feel really good right now. And so the first, 4 or 5 innings, I just got it rolling. And it's weird. I was just in a zone where you don't really, you don't hear the noise. You don't hear anything. It's just me and Hundley playing catch. And it didn't matter who was up there. It just didn't matter. I was going to throw my pitches and they just didn't really hit anything. And as it got later on, once you get to as a starter, that's another thing that's kind of changed. But as a starter, the 6th, 7th inning, that's the kind of, we start getting a little bit tired, and it's a lot can happen in those innings. And so once I got there, I'm like, all right, we've got this game won now. I feel confident, and I just want to finish it. This will be an amazing thing. And so I pressed a little bit, and but I was getting a little tired too. And then in the 8th, I saw McMichael warming up, and I'm like, I'm not letting him come out. And then I saw Johnny warming up, and I'm like, I know he can finish the game, so I'm just let's just go. And I just went at it. Gilkey made a great play, and I was fortunate enough to finish it, and it was just awesome. I mean, if you could have one thing to do is to do that in Yankee Stadium. And it was really cool hearing "Let's Go Mets" in Yankee Stadium and fans. I mean, I get fan mail yesterday from it. I still get a lot of mail from it, and that's what I am known for. And it's what a great thing to be known for. But like I said, I had some other games, but that was one game where everything just worked. And Todd, I don't think he gets enough credit for how he called that game. And we had great defense too. The outfielders made some great plays, and that just gives you confidence. And I think one thing that I learned from that game that I took forward is I worked a little bit quicker, and they were just on their toes. And I don't know, I never pitched in a World Series, and it felt like a World Series game to me. I don't know. I'm sure it's different. I mean, I know they played against each other later, but I wasn't a part of that. And it was a blessing. I'm so glad I got to do it, pitch in that game and be a part of New York history and the Mets history. And yeah, it was pretty awesome. I can't say enough great things about it. I still have the ball downstairs. I have some sand from the mound that game. And yeah, I have some special stuff for me, which is pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk about, actually, it's funny that you bring up as far as speeding up and slowing down now with with the baseball, with the shot clock, and
yeah,
I call it the shot clock, but
it is
clock which you got to pitch by a certain point.
Sure.
What do you think? How do you think that has an effect on the game in general?
Well, that's definitely sped it up, right? For me, I think it probably would have helped a little bit because I don't know, I'm a thinker, and so sometimes I get stuck in my own head where I think if you just got up there and you had to get up on the mound and pitch real quick again, I think it probably would have helped me a little bit. It did that game. And if I look back at some of my better games, that's kind of what I did. You'd think I'd learn from that, right? But you get a little stubborn. But I don't know. I was always a cerebral guy, and I always just looked at different situations and how to pitch different guys, different ways and all that. And I think it speeds it up. I don't know. Is it good for the game? I guess it is. I guess fans like it, right? I mean, you can attest to that, I guess, right? And good and bad. I think it takes away a little bit of the strategy, but I don't know. I think overall it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, so for me as a fan, I've never really cared for it because to me, again, it goes back to the whole strategy, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the throwovers. You can only throw over twice, and once you throw over twice, if you don't, he gets a free bag. So that's just giving more stolen. So it's like, well, wait a minute, you're trying to make the game more and gear it with the analytics for people hitting a long ball, but now you're giving them stolen bases. So like,
right.
Where are we trying to go?
Where are we going? Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to do? I agree. Yeah.
Here, the ghost runner thing is another thing, which like after a while, it's like, this is not the game that I grew up watching.
No. I'm not a fan of that one either. I think,
Yeah.
if it goes 20 innings, it goes 20 innings. It is what it is. I remember, pitching against the Rangers when I was in, God, who was I with Detroit. And they were like, the day before we went extra innings, bullpen shot. And so I get there, he's like, game's yours. You got to pitch it. And my arm is killing me. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. I'm not going to make it out of this game. I don't know how we're going to do this. And so I warm up and he's like, just throw 80%. Let's just see how we go. And so I'm throwing 80%. Seventh, eighth inning, I look up and I'm still throwing 95. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, that's kind of cool. And, I think I go, 8 innings and, we win. And I was like, but to your point, like the mindset changes. And I also had a game against, when I was in LA against Arizona, and I come in and it's tied in the ninth inning. And obviously we were the visiting team. So, they score, they win. So I can't give up a run. And they get bases loaded, nobody out, and I get out of it. That was in the ninth. And then it ends up going, I think I pitched another 8 innings, scoreless, and then, so it's kind of cool. I like that part of the game. I don't know. Yeah, I miss that part of baseball. So
I don't disagree with you.
yeah. Hey, can we pause this for a sec?
Sure.
Yeah. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead.
The vibe.
Okay. So, so anyways, we were talking about as far as the changes of the games.
Yeah.
One of the things that, quite honestly, I have big issues with, and I don't know, like me and my son get in arguments about it, is pitching inside and/or the policing of the game, protecting your players, where it doesn't feel like it's done as much anymore. And he goes, "That's not how the game's played anymore, Dad." I'm like, dude, I throw at guys at camp for less freaking stuff than that.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's the one thing that I do. Yeah, I know they're trying to protect guys, and you need to, but you got to keep them off the plate. Like if you don't throw inside, you are going to get killed. You have to get them back, and unfortunately, they're going to get hit every now and then. You're not trying to kill anyone. You're not trying to. Anytime someone gets hit in the head, that's complete mistake. Like that's you're not. No one's trying to do that. You kill someone, so that's not part of it. But you're trying to get them inside, get them off the plate, and if you get them back a little bit, then you can throw away, and it makes it that much harder to hit. I mean, you've been in a batter's box. Someone throws high and tight, man, you're kind of antsy. You don't want to get in there. So that's part of the game. Now guys too have all that armor.
All that armor, you just took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, that drove me nuts. I hated that. I tell the story. I was with Biggio. I'll keep it clean, but I was pitching against him and he's got all that gear on, and I throw a ball and it's borderline a strike, and he sticks his elbow out. So he's going down the line. I'm like, you want to get hit? I'll hit you. If you want to get hit, then we had a few jawing sessions back and forth there. And then it kind of pisses you off, right? And then seriously, about 2 weeks later, I get traded to Houston. So we had this little, I'm like, hey buddy, what's up? And he turned out to be a great friend. And he's one of those guys you want to have on your team, but man, pitching against him with that armor and everything, because there's no fear. There's nothing in there. Like it's not going to hurt you, and so, and that's kind of a funny story, but you have to do it. And again, I don't know how much they go inside. I think the new strike zone is also different. We talked, earlier about Maddox, and, the umpire would give him that far off the plate. And as long as you kept hitting that spot, you'd get it. Now he might take away the inside part, but give you the outside part. So each umpire was different. But now with that new strike zone, it is what it is. So I guess that would change things a little bit. Now we used to throw, if it was mid thigh was a ball, and then but the strike zone went wider. Now it's higher. So I don't know how that would affect the game as far as how I pitched. So I see guys swinging at balls at chest high, which is a strike, and back then they wouldn't even look at that. Which I think for me it would have helped, because if I threw high and then I threw my curveball, that would change their eye, and I think I would have gotten a lot better looks. But who knows? It is what it is. So the game changes, it evolves. Do I agree with some of it? No, but I don't know. They're trying to do the best they can, I think.
And I think with the new strike zone, I think with a couple of those guys like Maddox and Gripe, like we were talking about earlier, once they start to learn where they're getting, I mean, I still think that they hit those corners. I still think that they get those those pieces and stuff like
Yeah.
that. They could,
Yeah.
like you said, they could hit a fly freaking into a certain spot.
They could. They could.
But they just didn't have the speed, but they
Right.
had movement.
They had movement in the location.
Yep.
It's funny as I was pitching against Maddox one time, and he throws a ball. I'm obviously a right-handed hitter, and he throws a ball outside, and I mean it's 8 inches outside, and he calls the umpire calls it a strike, and I stop and I turn around, and I was like, that's not a strike, and he's like, that's a strike, and I'm like, well, I better get that pitch too, and he takes his mask off and he goes, you win 5 Cy Youngs, you'll get that pitch too, and I go. I said, you give me that pitch and I'll win 5 Cy Youngs. So it's just, and he does, but he hit that spot every time and there's nothing you could do with it. And for me, he's trying to throw away the pitcher. I'm not a threat to him, but, then if that was, whoever, Cecil Field or someone else, then he'd bust him in to get that pitch away, which, that's what, pitching is, in, out, up, down, and change speeds. Pretty simple. Hard to do, but pretty simple.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as always, we definitely appreciate you coming on. Now we have a section here where we call it is "Don't Shoot the Messenger," which is kind of some rapid fire questions.
All right.
And we're gonna throw them out there, and they're basically you pick one side or the other side and kind of go from there.
Okay.
So you ready for it?
We'll see. I'll let you know.
All right. Pitch clock or no pitch clock?
You start with a tough one. I think it's good. I think it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I go with it. Yeah.
Bigger bases or regular bases?
Regular bases. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
DH or no DH?
No DH. Okay. I think it was more of a game.
Purist game.
Pure game. Yeah.
I've always been a purist of the game myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ghost runner or no ghost runner?
No. What are we playing in a park? No ghost runner. No, absolutely not. I'm old school.
So am I. Like I said, I don't like it for that reason, for a lot of different reasons. But to me, there's some of the best baseball games I ever went to were the long ones, the 16-inning games. It was like you had a classic game.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, no, I agree. I'm a purist. I agree with you on that one.
Okay. Analytics or old school managing?
Can there be a combo? I personally would go old school. I like that more. Like I said, I'm an old school guy. I understand part of the analytics. I get where they're coming from, but that doesn't. If you have a great arm or you can hit for power, let me see you hit the curveball. Can you hit a curveball? Like I don't know. Analytics are. I think it's a baseline, but I'd rather have an old school manager.
Who's feeling? I'd see that's the way I am. I know it's a part of the game.
It is.
And to me, it's okay. What about those days where the analytics say I'm supposed to bat this guy?
Right.
I got a feeling about this guy.
100%.
He's ripping the ball. He's been ripping line drives just at people. He's hitting the ball hard.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. It's like he's gonna do something.
Yeah. So, I have one for you on that. So I'm pitching in Boston, and I forget who was up. It was it was like Delano to Shields, not easy. I don't want to say that because no one was easy. But I just didn't feel comfortable facing him. And next is Manny Ramirez, right? And I'm like, I can get Manny out. I don't feel comfortable with him. So I pitch around this guy and I look in the dugout and he's looking at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got it. Because it was a gut feeling. And I knew with Manny how he kind of swung, I could just throw something down away, a little slider. I could get him to get what I want. And the analytics would say you're an absolute idiot for doing that. Because he is one of the best hitters in baseball. But to your point, it was a gut feeling. I knew I could get him out and not Delano to Shields. And people think you're freaking crazy. Because, not that Delano Shields isn't a good player, but it's not Manny Ramirez, So that's where I think analytics doesn't fit in the situation.
And it's funny, using one of my own experiences as an example, there was a couple of years ago, I was down at camp and Tank he's always, most of the time, I have Tank as a manager and a coach. But,
that's awesome.
And I'm sure you probably heard about that as well. I think there's only been two times I haven't had Tank in the times I've been going down there. But anyway, and the first couple of games, I'm ultra.
Yeah.
And I'm getting angry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this, and then he walks up, looks at me, he goes, "What's the matter?" I said, "What's the matter?" I said, "You ain't paying attention to these games? Like, you drinking more than I am right now? Like, what's going on? I haven't got the freaking hate yet."
Yeah.
And he's like, George, you've hit the ball on the button at every at bat, just at somebody.
Correct.
They're gonna fall.
It'll fall. It'll fall.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Sure enough.
And that's it.
Right?
Sure enough, they do. But it doesn't help in the time. But it helps to have somebody to say, okay,
calm you down. But I think that
you're hitting the ball on the button, they're gonna fall.
Yep.
A little bit here, a little bit there. It's a half inch either way. You're on it. So
but I think Tank's like an old school guy too. And that's what you see. And you know that it's just those little words that make a difference. Analytics, because you're 0 for, so maybe you shouldn't be playing because you're 0 for, but you've been killing the ball. So why it's true. Yeah. So that's where I think the game, I think there's a place for it. Maybe you can see, spin rates and stuff like that. Maybe you can make yourself better, but baseball's such a feel game, and I don't know. It's such a purist game, so I don't like some of that stuff. So sorry, I cut you off. That was a long.
No, you're perfect. You're perfect.
Yeah.
So just what are you doing now that you're retired?
Well, I retired and I helped coach my 2 boys' hockey teams, baseball teams. And then I went to the local high school here and I met the coach and I was like, I don't want to get paid. I would just love to help coach some of your pitchers. And so I did that for about 12 years and loved it, and got high school kids. When the kids were younger, it was hard because I just wanted them to have fun, but I'm competitive, like to win, obviously. And at that age, that's not what it's about. And at high school, they could start listening and we could actually see differences. And that's what I really enjoyed, is make it a kid, think a different way, look at a thing a different way, and then change, and he has success and you just see it in his eyes. And I think high school sports is so great for kids, and everyone should do something. It doesn't matter what it is, just be part of something in high school. And, you wear the jersey to school and you see the kids come in, and it was great. So I just did all that. Like I said, the boys have gotten older now. They're 23 and 24. Good Lord, I'm getting old. And yeah, they're in, New York and in Miami, Florida right now, investment banking and private equity, and they're doing great stuff. But they both got their start in New York, and I feel like I got my start in New York, and it's like kind of cool that we have, at least we all have that in common. So I'll be there in a couple of weeks, going to help them move in, and it's awesome.
It's great.
Yeah, play a lot of golf too. Try to.
Okay.
Yeah. I play.
Might have to get you on the golf course then.
Love to. I'd love. Well, yeah, you said you shot pretty well the other day.
Yeah, yes, I played pretty well. So
yeah, that's good. It's funny as I'm here at Muirfield, and Paulo O'Neill's been here for a while, and so I play with him a lot. And so we come back to that Subway game. I'd bring that game up, and I was like, we owned you, and just kind of doing that. And then he would pull out all his World Series wins. Like, shit. I was like, well, I don't have that.
Really? Hold on, let me do something.
Yeah, I don't have any of those. So, but he's a great dude. So it's funny. He's another one of those guys where you didn't want to play against him, but you get to know him. He's a great dude. So
nice. That's great.
Yeah. So play a lot of golf.
So many guys are such just great guys that most people don't know until they see him and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You have a conversation like,
okay. Good dude. Yeah, it's good dude. Well, because you're on the field, you're different. I mean, you're playing at the highest level. You're playing to win. No one wants to lose, and you don't want to. Going back to New York fans, like you put the city on your back. You don't want anyone to be disappointed in anything you do. And so I think you're a different person. I think I was a different person than I am now, and that's all right. Things evolve, things change, and but yeah, you come down to it, everybody loves the game, and it's I think it's what fantasy camp brings out too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, we definitely appreciate having you on and coming on a great session. Thank you very much for the time. And
thanks, bud.
Hopefully we'll get to see you very shortly in November. Not November, the end of October.
Yeah. Coming up. It's coming up quick, man. We'll be down there. It'll be fun. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.
All right.